Hi, welcome to the Unscheduled podcast. I'm your host, Zach, along with my co host.
That's me, Javi.
Hey, Javi, it's good to have you back, man.
Dude, I'm actually really glad to be back. Just, in the mood, just in the groove of making podcasts. It's great.
Yeah, no, seriously, I feel you on that. Like, for our listeners, I know we've been gone, like, what, 2 weeks now? Maybe?
At least. Yeah, at least.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm glad to get another episode out, especially just recording here and catching up, especially because there's a lot to catch up on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So much has happened.
Yeah, so I don't know if you want to talk about your stuff first, and then we get on into other topics then.
Ooh. Yeah, no, sure. Yeah, I can start off with what I've been doing. It's kind of like an indirect announcement, kind of in a way.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, so for those of you that don't know or are listening and are not aware of the situation I've been in, I've had coronavirus, at the very least for the past 3 weeks. I've been quarantining at home. I've just not been going out, just relaxing and, following the guidelines to make sure that no one else is getting sick. And yeah, that's part of the reason why the podcast hasn't really been happening is because I couldn't even talk without coughing for like 5 days. So that's part of the reason why.
Yeah, no, dude, I'm happy more than anyone to have you back, really, because like when I found out the news of you having it, I was like my heart sank because I was just like, oh, I we don't even know how badly this can affect people, but
Hmm.
like hearing the updates from you and then just like seeing you were on the road to recovery, I was very happy about that. Like everything else is just like back burner. I'm like that's I mean honestly in an ironic way or I don't know on ironic way, but more of like this is what we planned for in a way. That's why we made the podcast unscheduled because we never knew what was going to happen.
Absolutely. I don't think we had coronavirus in mind, when we made the podcast.
No, definitely, especially with
um,
the steps like I know your family's been taking, I've been taking.
mhm.
So it's like when I heard you got it, it totally blindsided me, and I can only imagine it got you guys even worse by surprise. Then.
Absolutely, yeah. So just to go a bit deeper into, I don't know, the fable of me getting coronavirus. Um, for the first few days I was sick. I didn't think I had the virus because all I had was like a light headache, and sometimes I was sneezing. Sometimes I was coughing. Actually, I wasn't even coughing. The first few days I was sick, it was really just more like of a headache. I did experience like chills and body aches, but I thought it was a cold, Like
Yeah, yeah,
I didn't lose my sense of taste, I didn't lose my sense of smell, and I actually didn't have a fever the first few days. So in my mind, I was like, oh, okay, I just have like a cold. I can just like live my daily life. That was I started feeling sick maybe like that Thursday of that week, and then as the weekend caught on, by Sunday I just felt significantly worse, and then on Sunday I actually started to notice I couldn't taste anything. Like my
yeah.
sense
At
of
that
taste was
point,
just
yeah. At
yeah
that point, that's when like all the alarms were going off.
my sense of taste and smell were just completely shot, and I realized, okay, maybe it's time to actually consider going to the doctor. And then Monday, I actually felt significantly worse. Like the quality of life dropped so hard. I was like, okay, I need to go to the doctor. And so I implored my parents, we got to go. It's scary, I think a lot of people have experienced this for many reasons, just going to the doctor and fearing the worst, especially with something like the coronavirus. You don't know what's going to happen to you. You see the news, you see, the videos, people explaining their experiences. But I don't think a lot of people realize just how scary it is to go into the doctor and realize I might have this.
Yeah, no, and I mean, no, I'm not going to draw that comparison, but I mean that's still a heavy thought going through your head as you're like at the doctors and stuff because that is so much of just like oh, I could have this. This can potentially lead to this or even this. And then it's like, especially when you see that like a lot of areas are reopening or trying to force things to move back along to the way things were, it just really makes you think, like, why it's not, we don't need to speed this up as hard as people are forcing it. And
Abs-
then, like,
yeah.
I don't know, there's so much unknown and so much that's just scary about it. So
Yeah, no, that's something I definitely want to cover later on if you don't mind. But
yeah, by
kind of
all
getting back,
means.
yeah, getting back into like my own experience. When I went to the doctor on Tuesday, that the following day, I told the doctor all my symptoms. I told her about the fact that I lost my sense of smell and taste, and her eyes immediately widened. And then she took my temperature, and she saw that it was 101.5, which is a fever. And she asked me, "Do you feel like you have a fever?" And I said, "No." And that's kind of when she was like, "Okay, you need to, as soon as you get home, you need to self quarantine. You can't go outside of your room for at least 2 weeks, and you need to make sure that you know if anyone's bringing you anything, just leave it outside your door. Don't let them come into your room, anything like that."
Yeah, no, I
And
mean,
yeah,
that's crazy. Like it's never a good sign when your doctor is worried,
yeah,
and then it's like it's even worse when they, like, you're suddenly dumped all this information on top of, which, I mean, I'm not going to say that's a bad thing. Please give
yeah,
me all the information you can.
absolutely, yeah.
But, like, I can't imagine looking at my doctor and then they're just like,
They're
they
worried.
suddenly are just like having this oh shit moment of, and
Yeah,
you're right there and you're on the receiving end.
yeah, absolutely. I think um this is I can't, prove this, but I think part of the reason why she was worried is because my mom was right next to me. And as you know, for those of you who don't know, both my parents have pre-existing conditions. So they were very susceptible to, getting the virus, and, not just getting the virus, but having a more serious toll or effect on their actual physical health.
Yeah, seriously.
And
I mean, it's, I don't think people realize just how many immunocompromised people there really are,
yeah,
with this virus going around. Like, I feel like when people think immunocompromised, they think of someone with, like, cancer or like
yeah,
a already terminal illness. But no, you can be fairly immunocompromised and still live a pretty normal appearing life. Like,
absolutely.
and then also, I don't think people also realize smokers are already immunocompromised to this virus, because it attacks the lungs, and already being a smoker, your lungs are highly damaged.
Absolutely, yeah. That's an interesting point to bring up about the idea of physical appearances as opposed to a person's actual physical health. Because when you look at like say let's say my dad, you wouldn't necessarily think that he's immunocompromised because especially of his like lifestyle and the way he like he's basically like he's like very work driven and stuff like that. He's not, you wouldn't really look at him and say, "Oh, he's gonna really take a serious hit from this." But that's not really how these things work. You wouldn't know it just by looking at my dad that he's had, pre-existing conditions, and it's really it kind of plays into, I think, this sort of individualism that a lot of people have, that they don't realize just how much this can really affect people.
Yeah, no, and I totally get that. Like, I mean, it's like, I feel like people too much think about, like, the physical or skin deep level, but
Hmm.
they don't actually think about, like, internal or microscopic levels, like things you can't see, which is a problem this country has just had. Like, or I wouldn't even say this country, I'd say the world at this point has had for a long time, because people only seem to understand what they can see, and even then they'll deny it at times.
Yes,
So I don't know. For me, it's just, it it's such a weird place to be in right now, especially now that, like, facts are no longer held in such high regard.
it's very disappointing. Um, I do still want to talk about my experience, not just to get it off my chest, but because I want people that listen to this to really understand just how dangerous this virus really is. But yes, I totally agree with you that, and both of our backgrounds, we know how dangerous the current situation is, because the truth is that most of what I would think is I'd say a big contributor to the spread of the virus and the people's attitude towards it is a deliberate misinformation from the federal government, and sort of like lax, almost sort of underwhelming mismanagement of the situation, and a proper like almost a denial like of the facts, and just a lack of education, really. people don't really understand what this virus really is, and it's kind of scary.
And I mean, I 100% agree. And it doesn't make sense to me at all. Like, it really doesn't. And the scarier part to me is not so much the troll who spreads misinformation, because to me, a troll will never believe what they spread.
Yeah.
It's the people who 100% believe in what they're saying and
Hmm.
it being misinformation.
Yeah.
Because,
Troll.
like,
Yeah. No, go ahead.
trolls will, again, trolls are still a problem. I'm not going to say no. They will still feed the misinformation. But the people who believe it and think that their information is just correct is so much scarier, because someone's, at that point, it's a belief of theirs, and someone's belief is held onto so much stronger than it is a reality.
Yeah, it's kind of scary when you think about that. Trolls have this self-awareness, they're spreading this misinformation, excuse me, deliberately, to cause panic and to, sort of see the reactions of people. They don't actually believe most of the stuff that they're publishing. They're doing it to, sort of, cause a disturbance, in a mischievous way, and really see how people react. That's what they're interested in. They're seeing how people react to something that's clearly and obviously false, but you can't help but believe it.
Yeah, and then, but again, it's like, it's scary to me how hard some people will believe something that, again, has no backing whatsoever. Like, I remember I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about how some people will just take a random tweet or YouTube comment or something as pure fact, and it's just someone saying something. It's not even like they have like these sources attached, they have proof or anything. It's just one single statement, and a person will hang on to that as its truth or law. And to me, it's completely wild that someone can do that. And but at the same time, I kind of look at history and I'm like, we've been doing this since forever.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, you have to also consider the fact that most people are looking at various channels for information. You look at Twitter. Some people are following maybe like hundreds of people, and they'll see contrasting opinions, but most people they follow like-minded people. They're not really following people that disagree with them on most of their stances. They're really kind of containing an echo chamber, and they're more willing. They're following people that they're more willing to believe. So when you see like a tweet from like a person that you respect or you think has a good track record of reporting these things, no matter how true that may not be, you'll look at that and you'll say, and then you'll take the information and then you'll corroborate it with whatever you already believed in the first place, and then that's where it kind of spreads, I think.
Yeah, no, and seriously, like, I think I remember telling you a while back, like, I pseudo left Twitter for a bit because
Mhm.
I was just having a overload of analysis on my end. And it's like, not to say that anyone can't analyze media and tweets and stuff, because they can, so
Yeah.
long as they actually know what they need to look for. But
Hmm.
for you and I, we've literally had like our education based around this stuff. And
Absolutely.
then to apply those techniques and see it literally working every 5 minutes, and then have 10 other techniques come in at the same time, it's just like my mind was like, stop,
Hmm.
please stop, or you're going to burn yourself out on like analyzing all this stuff. So for me, it was really, it was in a way very scary of how much behind the curtain you can see at times.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. Like, um, I would say before and after, getting my degree from, UMC, I definitely noticed that I'm a lot more critical and I'm a lot more interested in, sort of the framing and the sort of like actual things that are in the tweet as opposed to like what it's trying to say. If that makes any sense. Like I'm much more interested in seeing like what was the person thinking about when they were making this, like how is it framed, like what is this a reference to? Like I'm much more interested in that. And I totally agree with you on that fact that it can be a bit overwhelming, just for your brain to constantly being engaged in analyzing the meaning and, the significance of each little thing that you're looking at. So I can kind of I definitely see where you're coming from that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, it was something for me that I was just like, I am going to overload myself on many levels. I just can't do this right now. So I
Yeah.
ended up taking a break for about a week or two, and then I came back, and I was like, it was a slow transition back. It wasn't like I immediately dived right back in.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was an interesting thing to look at, and so it was just like I I didn't think I'd think about it so much until like we saw something like this unfolding.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, and the fact that it literally touches everyone, like it's impossible to say at this point that no one is unaffected by what's going on right now.
Absolutely.
That for me, I was just like, wow, this is hitting a whole new level.
Hmm. Yeah, but if you don't mind, I just want to go back to a bit
Yeah,
about my
sure, go ahead,
experience.
go ahead.
First. Yeah. So I should have mentioned that when I went to the eye doctors, I did get tested, and on the first day I came back, I don't know, like it's kind of funny. Like I think you know how like when the doctor tells you that you're fine, you like almost immediately feel better.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. It's just it's that alleviating feeling of like,
yeah,
oh, nothing's wrong because like your paranoia of something being wrong is now gone. Yeah. So
yeah,
trust me, I totally get that.
yeah. When when the doctor told me to self quarantine, and when she took my test and she said, you probably have it. I wasn't necessarily freaking out. I was trying to calm myself down however I could. I was meditating. I was doing breathing techniques, stuff like that. And I think for the most part, I actually did a pretty decent job of keeping myself calm. But when I got back, it just kind of like fully hit me that like I was sick, like I wasn't just like sick. I was like really sick.
Yeah, yeah. It's
And
that I
it
can only imagine.
it fully hit me when I got home and I realized for like at least the next few weeks I was gonna have to be not just home, but within my room. And almost immediately, like, I just felt the symptoms, like, kinda creeping up on me. The coughing, the chills, the body aches. Um, like, for the first few days after I took the test, I think I told you, like, if I, like, laid down the wrong way or if I, like, got into bed too quickly, I would, like, have, like, a coughing fit, And when I was having those coughing fits, I kind of like I was thinking about whether or not I needed to be hospitalized. Like there were like moments where like I couldn't like get like a solid breath for like 10 minutes. Like I couldn't take those like deep breaths that you would normally do just to calm yourself down. And
Yeah. Wow, that's wild to me. Like again, I can't even think of some of this stuff. Like that's a whole new level of like fear in my head.
yeah, like imagine like those deep breaths that, the doctor asks you to take when you're taking like a physical. I couldn't even maybe like reach like a quarter of that. Like it was pretty insane like like how much it like that's when I realized, oh yeah, this is a respiratory thing. Like I cannot breathe basically.
Yeah, no, no,
Essentially,
that I get it.
I essentially felt like I was cut off from my body in a way because I just couldn't connect with how I was feeling because from one end, I physically did not want to feel the symptoms, but I also realized that I needed to be like present and engaged with like what's around me to make sure that I'm like actually like eating properly, getting the right sleep, eating enough water. I'm sorry, eating water, drinking water, and just taking medication that they gave me and stuff like that. So the first week, I would say the first five or so days was rough. After that, it did get better. I would say I could definitely breathe a little easier. Just laying down the wrong way didn't make me cough anymore. I was still coughing a little bit, but it was nowhere near like the first few like those first 5 days. I would not wish it upon anyone. Like that's how bad I think it was. And then yeah, after the first 5 days or so, I would say it was fine. At least the first 5 days after I took the test, because like I told you, I was sick for like half a week or so before I actually got the test. Um, and then yeah, I'd say after that, I was able to sort of take my care of myself a little bit better. Um, I was able to be a little more like I was able to like move around my room a little bit more. I didn't just want to stay in bed all day. And then, after that, it was just this, my recovery shooted up, and I think that's because obviously, if I had to just give it to myself, I'd say it's probably due to the fact that I'm still young and I'm relatively active, so that's kind of really helped. But I mean, if there's anything that the people who listen to this podcast come away with is I don't want you to negate or to really push off the seriousness of this virus. Please, if you don't have a solid source or a solid sort of frame of reference for understanding how severe the virus is, I'm sure there are people who have had it people will die from this, that's how bad it can get, so if you have nothing else, please take my story into consideration, the next time you go outside without your mask. Take in consideration when, you go to the store and you're just touching whatever. It really is that serious, I'd say.
Yeah, and I mean, seriously, it's just not a joke. It really isn't, and I will never understand why people think it's some weird conspiracy theory or feel like there
No,
needs to be more information about it.
yeah,
But it's just something to me it's like I will never comprehend why people are like that. But the point being is I'm hoping more and more people will at least take this seriously instead of there being more people who do not take it seriously.
absolutely.
And we can just move along and hopefully eliminate this virus, or I mean not even eliminate it, at least adjust to where we can deal with it, because a new normal is coming, or it's already here essentially.
Yeah.
And whether or not you like it, it's here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not changing back to the way it was. We can't go back to the way it
No.
was now. There's nothing we can do about it at this point to go back to the way it was.
Yeah, I mean, just within the context of the virus, I've seen and spoken to plenty of people that say even after stuff opens back up and after the cases go down, which it still hasn't, by the way, um, they're still going to be wearing their masks because they realize the seriousness and how the negligence of, basically of other people as well, and not just that, but also to keep others safe. I think a lot of people, it's easy to look at the negatives and say oh, people are not wearing their masks and stuff like that, but there are also a lot of people that are wearing their masks not just for their own safety, but because they realize that if they do have it or if they have the chance of transmitting it, that they need to make an effort to protect other people as well. So I think in that sense, it's definitely changing the culture and the way we look at how public health.
Yeah, no, again, I get that. Actually, I was looking at a tweet earlier and I almost wanted to refute it, but the more I thought about it, I was like, wow, this is actually really true. And I'm going to say this is true to not just, so I'm going to read this and then I'll finish up my thoughts on it.
Okay.
So the tweet says the reason why America isn't recovering from COVID-19 as quickly as other countries is because we are a country that values individualism over collectivism. Nobody
Mhm.
here wants to do anything that is a minor inconvenience to them in order to protect their neighbors. And honestly, I'm not I honestly right now I would say America is the worst offender
Yep.
because we have the highest rate of COVID now, like higher than anyone right now. But I wouldn't just say it's America. Like there are many countries I would say out there, but America I would definitely put is the biggest offender on this right now of people can't sacrifice a little bit, a 5% at most of their comfort. If even really it's 5%. Just so everyone can be okay. They have to freaking have it that it's this entitled mentality that they have to have things only their way and the
Yeah.
rest of the world can get screwed. So I don't know. It's so stupid, but the tweet honestly rang really true for me.
Yeah, I remember when, especially when the virus was going early on, there was a sort of public discussion about this sort of question of how the coronavirus sort of affect individual rights, and I could kind of understand those worries uh if they're literally saying, "Hey, don't go outside of your house or else you'll get fined." But most states, especially Maryland, were not doing things like that. They were telling you, "Hey, stay home and just relax." or if you have to go to work, make sure it's like you're going to like an essential bit. You're working for an essential business, or you're going to like an essential business, to get like groceries, or you're going to like the pharmacy or something like that. You know, like where were your rights being trampled on? They were telling you to wear a mask and to only go to like the grocery store. Like that's basically what they were telling you, and you couldn't even do that. You know what I mean? Like it's ridiculous in my opinion.
And honestly, for me, it's like people who are arguing against this in my head are just the same people who are always looking to for something to fight about. They're
Hmm.
always looking for something to fight about. It's this issue. They will look for anything in their life to fight about.
Yeah.
So it's like for me, I have no respect for that whatsoever because they want to have a fight. They want to feel like there's some hero challenging something, but at the end of the day, no, it's not. You're just being an asshole.
So,
And the moment anyone calls you out on it, they just immediately go into denial and then just start defending it even more, which is beyond stupid in my head.
yeah, the lengths some people will go to sort of defend their viewpoints, and this kind of goes beyond the virus and just sort of like it kind of leads back into that tweet about individualism and sort of the collective idea of sort of like a lot of people are much more concerned with being correct or viewing themselves as being, a progenitor of what is right and wrong, as opposed to, realizing what's right for everyone or what's good for everyone, as opposed to like what they actually want for themselves. And for what a lot of people want for themselves is to be right. They want to, they want to be on the winning side, at least in their heads. And to these people that deny the virus, they want to believe that the winning side is just going back to life as it was before, or just to completely deny the virus's effect on, the rest of the world. And I think that's ludicrous.
Yeah. I have yet to see anyone who has been personally affected. Not that their friends or family have been affected or friends or like distant family has been affected, but they themselves personally, like them as an individual, get affected by this virus and then later say that, oh, this virus is a hoax or this virus is not that serious. I've yet to see anyone who does that because there are people who will get because everyone who I've seen has denied the virus and then
Hmm.
gets it
Yeah.
says afterwards that this virus is no joke.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I actually saw a video. I can't remember if it was CNN or which channel it was run on, but there was a reporter that was covering the recent Trump rally in Oklahoma, and she spoke. I think they spoke to one of the supporters, and they said that he was wearing a mask, and I think he fully well understood the fact that the virus was real. He said that some of his family members and friends were affected by the virus. He saw some people, they were severely affected by it, but what he was concerned about wasn't the effect of the virus. On the stance of public health and sort of his community, he was more concerned with this idea of the democratic and liberal left using the virus as a means of pushing their own policies and agendas that would negatively affect the people that support Trump. And I thought that was really interesting because it's a window into the viewpoint of these people that I think a lot of people realize that the virus is real, but they just don't want to understand that it's not really a matter of ideology. It's a matter of, compassion. It's a matter of empathy, of realizing that people are being hurt by this virus, and it goes so much more beyond opposing ideologies.
I mean, yeah, no, I that's why I'm saying like that was in the back of my mind when I was saying like personally affected because
Yeah.
I don't think that person like when I saw that video you were talking about and I'm like if this person had directly gotten the virus themselves, I feel like it would have been a completely different tune, a
Mm,
completely different thing they would have said altogether. But then again, had they gotten the virus and they're asymptomatic, they could have just used that even more as a denial. But
yeah.
that's not the point I'm trying to make. It's like
Hmm.
and for someone to say something like that, to me, they are beyond help at that point because they're going to stick to their quote unquote belief or idea of what or not even idea, their belief and or faith of what they're hanging on to this like political extreme, if you will,
Yes.
instead of looking at like what's seriously going on. So I don't know. At that point, I'm just like, fine, you don't believe it. I can't put any more energy into saving you, but I'm gonna make sure everyone else is at least informed or knows to, or please try to at least stay healthier and live a better life than not have this virus. So I don't know. It's just, it was wild to me that someone could say that at that point in their life. But like I said, at that point, they have to be very personally, and I mean directly personally themselves, they themselves getting the virus to understand it at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like what sucks is that, I feel like you shouldn't have to get the virus to understand how severe it is. I mean, even before I had the virus, I was staying at home, admittedly, before, the lockdown stuff was going on, I still was, seeing people and stuff like that, but I was still, doing social distancing. I wasn't like, I was constantly following the protocols and stuff like that. And, I still got sick, you know? Like it's it's just frustrating to feel like you have to see the virus, affect someone or affect you personally to think that it's real or to think that it's not it's not like something that's actually out there.
Yeah, I mean, so you're honestly hitting the nail right on the head there. But it's like I remember when it first hit over here in the U.S. and then like we were getting the lockdowns and everything.
Yeah.
Um, and then there were the news stories of like, oh, this person still did this and still got the virus, and I was like, I was getting angry at those stories because I was like, yeah, it's not going to guarantee you don't get the virus because clearly you're going to have to go out at some point.
Yeah.
It's just highly reducing your chance. There is
Yeah.
no guarantee that you won't get the virus. There is
Hmm.
none of that. Unless you are literally living on a deserted island only by yourself with no other contact with humans, then that is like the highest chance of you not getting the virus. That's like a 99.9 infinite 9%
Yeah.
chance of you not getting the virus. But so long as you're in a human populated area, or even with animals, because we now see that animals can contract the virus too,
Hmm.
there is no guarantee you're not getting it. And
Yeah.
it's still so crazy to me how the world has responded to it. And I remember going back to Twitter and seeing another tweet, and it's like people were saying people who don't wear masks are the same ones who would spread the virus during the zombie apocalypse. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, I believe it. I 100% would believe that.
Yeah, it's funny. There are a lot of tweets about how, they were like apologizing, like, because like you know how like in like those zombie movies, people are like still going outside or they're like not they don't believe it, so they'll get bitten and they'll come back to the group and like they'll unknowingly or like intentionally like give the virus to people or the zombie like whatever it is to the people. And it's funny because, like, people thought that the behavior was stupid, right? Like, no one would actually act like that. And now they realize, no, like, because of this virus, we now know that there are people who will fully, intentionally just completely ignore everything that's going on and carrying on as, as if life were still like as it was before. And it's honestly bewildering.
Yeah, and there are people who still think, and it's like, I don't think everyone's aware of this, or if they are, they just choose to ignore it. It's like
Hmm.
even people who have gotten the virus and have like gone through it, passed it, and healed are still not immune to this virus. That's another
No.
thing that's wild to me because it's like they were talking about how there's like it's like between 14 to 17% chance of re-triggering the virus within you even if you've already passed it.
Yeah.
So and it's like people who suddenly like got the virus and they're okay are going out without masks and everything. It's like, no, that's not how this works. Just
No.
because you already got it and think you passed it, that doesn't mean you suddenly are an exception because you can still get sick and you can still carry it and pass it on to other people. Like that's not how this works. And I've known and seen people both online and personally who have gone to areas and they said they've either had the virus, their family has had the virus, or they think
Mhm.
they've had the virus. And then they're still going out to like one person I know just went to Ocean City and they said their family just had the virus. And I'm like, "What are you doing? This
That's
is the exact problem we're trying to avoid.
that really is just um you know not to comment too much on your friend, but that kind of attitude is very sort of um it's just such a disregard and sort of and it really is a big contributor to I feel like because you know just by being in a household that has coronavirus, even if you don't have it, or the thing is like I'm gonna be straight up. Like, if you're in a household with coronavirus, you're probably gonna get it at some point. Like, that's just a fact. Like I've spoken about this with like my doctor and stuff like that. If you're in a household just with coronavirus, you're probably gonna get it. Like, unless you like move out or something before like it happens, you're gonna get the virus, or you have at the very least a chance of like transmitting it to other people.
Yeah, and
So
no, I go ahead, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, so I mean, just hearing that, I mean, even if your friend wasn't exhibiting symptoms, or they were asymptomatic or whatever, that it's just such a high chance and like a disregard for like the facts in a way.
I mean, yeah, no, I completely agree. And I could go on and on about like what they did or what they said.
Hmm.
But I mean, I'm not here to throw that person under the bus. I'm just saying it's
Yeah.
like it's if you think about 6 degrees of separation and that whole I guess thought.
Yeah.
I don't know the proper term for that, but it's like the virus is way closer than you think,
Hmm.
and it's not that hard to get it at this point. So, but it's like again, people are still going out when when you think even people you know personally wouldn't go and do this, but then they go and do that. It blows my mind. Like, and I'm never going to understand why they do it. I'm never going to be able to wrap my head around that or shove my head up my ass that far, to be honest. I just won't be able to do that. And so for me, I'm just like I I can only hope the people around them don't get the virus. That's my only thing. Because there are some people who I've seen are really good at taking care of themselves and they know how to avoid the virus.
Absolutely. And yeah, like kind of to your point, like you have to kind of be living in your own world to sort of see things from that way or to be acting in that way. And it's I think that's kind of the biggest problem is realizing for people to realize that it's not just them, like for example, when you think about the people that went to Miami Beach, you remember like in March, when people were going to like Miami Beach for like spring break and stuff like that, and they're like there's like this one guy who was like, oh well, it's not going to affect me, I'm young, it's not going to like kill me or anything like that, I'm not going to get it. And that's kind of like the attitude, it's like it's kind of like that point of view, like it's not going to affect me, or like I'm not going to give it to like my parents, or I'm not going to bring it back to my house, so like why should I care if if I'm out at the beach with like all these people that might have it.
Yeah, and I mean, not even, you can't even say this ironically. The reality of it is that same guy got the virus, I think, within like 2 weeks. And then
Honestly,
he apologized to people about it too. And I'm like, and that's going back to my point earlier. Until someone literally personally gets the virus, they're
yeah,
not going to accept. Some people are just not going to accept the reality of our situation.
absolutely. Like, some people would say, yeah, obviously that is ironic, but it's more sad than anything. I feel for the guy, honestly, even though, what he said and did was, dumb. He was still a person. He was affected by the virus. He probably spread it to his family or his friends and stuff like that. And in turn, it's a virus. It's spreading through people. And so, it's sad from that viewpoint, but also sad from the idea that he unknowingly, or, maybe not unknowingly, but like for a huge disregard for his community, was spreading the virus. It's a terrible thing to think about.
It's, I don't know, like as much as I would, I would love for people to be accountable for it, but that's not how it is in this country. Other countries have definitely had more controlled, if not almost extreme ways of
Mm,
dealing with things, but it's like at the same time they're kind of getting results. And
mm,
it really makes you think, but that's a discussion for another time. Like that's not
yeah,
what we're here for or about right now.
yeah,
But I mean, it's just like I'm really hoping I'm with people. I'm hoping we find a cure soon, but there is
mm,
a new normal we have that we're not going back to the way our life was before. There is no way we can go back to it, as
Mhm.
much as we want to wish for it. But as much as we feel like we're entitled to have it, there is no previous life we can now go back to.
No, like you think about like how I was saying before, like um people's attitudes towards public health is going to be significantly altered by this virus. People's attitudes towards how they interact with strangers in public and the way they like move, just the way they move. Like people are not going to be like moving and like interacting in the same way that they were doing so before if they do take into account how this virus has affected people. And you know, um just when you think about like how just everything, it's never going to be the same, and that could be a positive thing if we think about this the right way. We can fix the things that were wrong with with everything before, and we can like slowly move towards an improvement, especially with regards to public health and healthcare and stuff like that. Or we could look at this in a very negative way and say like people are going to be even more dismotivated and take even like less care with how they treat each other and themselves.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I know people are going to argue about, oh, the economy needs to bounce back. Oh, we need to do this for the economy. But it's like,
Mm.
I get that. That is a valid argument. The way
Mm.
you are handling it, though, is not valid.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's just, it's a multi factor thing at the end of the day. And then
Yeah.
people just cannot get past themselves. So, we're going to have to see what happens at this point. And I'm tired, you're tired, everyone's tired. But at the end of the day, the real change is going to come from the people who, follow what we're supposed to do and and just make sure everyone's okay.
Hmm.
So, I don't know, like that's my thought on that really. Like I don't there's not much else I can say at this point.
No, I feel you. My personal thought is like I'm an optimist, and I want to say like despite the fact that the cases have been high, and under the current administration, things obviously have not been handled nearly as well as they could have been. Um, if but yeah, um, I want to say with the slightest grain of optimism that this will hopefully open more people's eyes to the truth as opposed to turning people away from actually want to engaging with the issue and actually being a positive force towards making change. But that's just me personally.
Yeah. I mean, like we can only hope the world changes, but you know, it may still be like what, another 6 months before we get a cure supposedly. I'm hoping
Yeah.
it's sooner. I'm
Hmm.
very much hoping it's sooner. But
Absolutely.
I mean, at this point I'm not going to hedge any bets on anything. I wouldn't be surprised if we still don't have a cure by this time next year.
No, yeah,
Like
it shouldn't be
that wouldn't
surprising.
surprise me. Or I feel like, and I hate to say this, but it's almost a reality. Not everyone is going to be able to afford protection from this virus. But
That's
that's a whole
yeah.
different discussion that we're not
That,
here for
that,
today.
that could be its own episode, honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's again, that's its own discussion that we don't have the time for today, at least at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's like I'm glad you pulled through. I'm
Yeah.
really glad. I'm glad you recovered.
Yeah, that's right. In case you guys didn't notice, I didn't die from the coronavirus. Um, I'm still here. I'm doing the podcast. So yeah, I was able to pull through. Um, Thankfully, everyone in my family seems to be doing fine. So that's great as well. And yeah, things are looking up. At least in my little home, we're doing great. And as far as I know, you guys are doing good as well, right? At least with the virus and stuff like that.
Yeah, as far as I know, we really like no one in my family, at least as far as we know, has gotten it. And my dad now actually has to get like testing every 2 weeks for it because of a medical institute he goes to.
Mm-hmm.
So he constantly has to go through that medical institute, and their policy is that you have to be tested before you're even allowed to like go into the building.
I
for
wish I.
like I guess that week or every time he visits. I don't entirely understand the ruling, but all I know is like every Friday he now goes and gets tested for the virus.
Yeah.
So it's like if he doesn't have it, we're like, okay, he's good. He's good. We're fine. And then if he does have the virus, immediately we have a couple plans we're going to try to implement as soon as we find out, but nothing is solid right now. Nothing.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, I think about it, it's like, how do you prepare for this, honestly? Like,
Mm.
it's not like how. It's not like how you see in movies that, like, somehow there's this one person who has, like, the 10-step plan and surefire immunity to avoid everything. Like, they just have everything right. You have to just do this specific step, and this specific step. Like, and then they're automatically, usually in movies and stuff, there's assumed to be a cure to get to there.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's just like, that's not the case for the world right now. So how do you even plan in case you do get the virus? Because it's not like you can suddenly just leave home, because in a weird way, home isn't even safe anymore at that point. It's like, where do you go?
Yeah. Like home is supposed to be like your sanctuary, Like it's where it's supposed to really, realistically speaking, home is where you feel most comfortable, where you feel like you're safe, you know, where you kind of like take the worries of the rest of the world away. And, within this new, context, home isn't really that anymore. It's really just somewhere you can be and hope that nothing happens, it's rough.
Yeah, so I mean, it's something we're really going to have to consider. And then hopefully, again, I'm hoping. I don't wish the virus on anyone, really.
No.
But for those who don't take. For those who don't take the precautions, don't come crying to me if you do get the virus. Like, just
Mhm.
just don't, because my questions will be: Did you take the steps to prevent getting it?
Mhm.
Did you did you actively try not to get it? And if you say yes to those, then I will be sympathetic, because it's like, okay, you literally did everything possible and still got it. That's just, I'm sorry you had that bad luck. But if you didn't do it, then in my head it's just no more than like, oh, you set yourself up for it. What do
Yeah.
you want me to do about it?
No, I feel you.
So I don't know. Like, usually I like to try and keep the podcast lighthearted and upbeat, but today, seriously, this was a topic that just like, especially with
And
how personally you were affected, like, it was something that needed to be discussed. And like,
yeah,
people just need to know, this is not a joke. Please keep your masks on. Please social distance. Nothing is worth you yourself getting the virus first and foremost, and then risking
absolutely.
others around you to get the virus either. The more we practice protection, the better off and sooner we will heal.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, for me, it's like, now that things are moving into phase 2, especially around here,
Mhm.
I'm more just like, okay, things are changing,
Mhm.
but like, I'm glad a lot of places in the area will not let you in without a mask. And if you're fighting that notion, screw you.
Yep.
Like, just screw you. I don't care what your beliefs or what you think is being violated. Screw you. But like, I'm glad at least some businesses are taking, at least around here. I can say around here, I'm glad businesses are taking this seriously, and are just like, we're not going to risk our employees' health. We're not going to risk the public's health just because one person wants to not follow the rules.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I'm glad about is like most, I haven't been outside just because obviously, I need to still until I take the immunity test, I still can't really be going outside. But from what it seems for me, it's like most of the people, or at least most of the businesses within this area, are doing a pretty good job of that, like you said. So I'm pretty happy about that. I'm pretty optimistic about that.
Yeah, I've already seen people turned away,
Mm-hmm.
and like, some people are just like, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot my mask. I'll go back to my car. Other people are just like, they're clearly angry but don't say anything. And then obviously there are going to be the irate people who try to just like become like belligerent and violent.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
But
that video of that guy trying to go into Walmart and he's just constantly like falling over himself. And part of me is like what are you doing? But at the same time, I can't help but like feel bad for like the employee, like well, it's just so sad.
yeah, my first thought was immediately this man's is not being paid enough to deal with this. But again,
Mm,
that's neither here nor there right now. That
yeah.
again, that's a whole different
Oh yeah.
episode we could do right there.
Yeah.
That's a
Oh yeah.
whole like we've already covered things that we could do 10 different episodes on right now.
Hmm.
But I don't it still baffles me that people feel like they now have to fight to do this. And it's like part of me in the back of my head it was at the very beginning I was cutting people some slack because I'm like, okay, they've been in quarantine for so long. They have cabin fever. They're ready to break out. It's like you're releasing a caged animal. But now that we're this far in, I'm like, you have no excuse. There is no excuse to ever get physical with someone ever.
No. Mm-mm.
So I don't know. It's like, it's something that's never gonna sit well with me.
Mm-mm. No, I agree with you there.
And so I think people are going to realize at least one day things are gonna have to change. But I don't know. It's nothing looks like it's changing anytime soon. But I'm glad the cure is at least being worked on right now. That's what I'm glad. That's what I'm very glad to see happening. So once we get that, hopefully we'll return to a little bit of the previous normalcy, but we're not
Hmm.
going to be completely as it was before, and which I assume was exactly what happened with the flu too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I
Yeah.
think that's a good place to wrap up for today, honestly.
I agree with you there.
All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And if you guys have your thoughts, leave it in the comments below. We'll take a read for them and maybe talk about them next episode. But yeah, I thanks Javi for being back. I'm glad you're back again.
Thank you. Yeah.
So with that, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you guys on the next, or I guess you guys will hear from us on the next episode of Unscheduled, which will be, who knows?
Knows?
It's the Unscheduled
Yeah.
podcast. Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. And stay safe. Wear your masks. Use hand sanitizer. All that good stuff. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye bye.